But
national security state career for you.
Exactly. But I did ask him, I said, you've got to get rid of one. Lord of the Rings, Godfather. Look, he instantly shakes his head. That was the correct thing, right?
Correct.
Godfather or Harry Potter.
He did Star Wars.
Or Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Or Star Wars. And he said he would get rid of Lord of the Rings. Oh, but we're going to let him redeem himself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask one question.
It's for love of Godfather, and for, you can't, it's for love, not hate. That's what I would say.
But we're going to let him redeem himself. I'm going to ask another question. Marvel or DC Universe?
Oh, okay, actually pretty Marvel.
Okay, Britney or Christina?
I'm not like I'm none of the above. I'd go with Britney just because she came back,
Okay. And lastly, Nikki Haley or Hillary Clinton?
Oh my God.
Trick question, it's the same person.
Exactly. I like that, actually. That's actually pretty good. One's an avatar for the other. It's a little close to home right now because there's a danger to our country is presenting itself in the same way. So I would go with none of the above.
Right.
But that's where I'm at.
There we go. But we just had a great time out in Iowa.
Good people.
Yeah, very good people.
Yeah.
And so what's the experience been like for you, jumping into a presidential campaign, coming in it kind of as an entrepreneur, which I think kind of gives you better eyes in a way?
Yeah. I mean, for better or worse, I am heavily involved in the running of the campaign as well. We've got a great team, but it's not because they're not doing their job. It's just how I'm wired is I can't just be the product on the assembly line. And I think there's like a lot of politicians who I think politics is made. There's an industry. That's kind of the most interesting part of this. Like, we put the policy stuff to one side. We'll talk about that at the event. But there's a back engine to this, a machinery where there's an entire industry. There's consultants. There's the people who actually run the campaigns. There's the people who are the strategists that view the politician as just one more cog in that broader machine. And I am just not very good at being a cog. I am not wired for that. And so when it comes to running this campaign, I make some unconventional decisions. I made a decision that I think shocked a lot of people in the media, in the world, in our own campaign, where I just said, I'm seeing the data. I think that cable TV ads and broadcast TV ads are like 90% a waste. If you want to hit like on a one-off on a given day, fine, you can do something interesting. But I think broadly, ROI on that dollar versus the dollars we're spending on everything else we're doing just doesn't make sense. But in the world of presidential politics, that's unheard of. Everybody thinks that reflects that you're not doing the things the way they're supposed to be done. And so that's just an example of a decision in the last couple of weeks that we made. But for me, that's been different, I think, for the way that these campaigns have traditionally been run. I hope I'm making the right decisions. I'm a first-timer. I've never seen this, but I still believe that coming in as an outsider, I have a better chance of making a right, rational, data-driven decision than to just be a cog in a wheel with total blindness to what's actually happening, which has kind of been, even on the logistics of like how you plan a day or like having a sense of, if I've been to Iowa enough now to know that, we're spending this much time in this place, but not in much in this place. I know that this is where we're going to get a little bit more detailed questions about agriculture or about the carbon pipeline or whatever. We're going to need a little bit more time. So for better or worse, I'm pretty hands-on, and that's been a little bit different in this process.
I'll ask you a second question. So I've been doing this political thing for 7 years. Which
Longer
means,
than me.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm no longer green. You were very green coming into this
Yes.
process. Were you shocked by the media? Because
Yeah.
when I was green, I was actually like, I didn't realize it was this bad.
I was shocked by two things. One is the media, and one is the actual influence of mega donors. And I feel silly saying that because coming into the process, like in your brain, because you've heard people say it to you, the media is corrupt and politicians are corrupt, and they dance to the tune of their donors. And so I already came in knowing and expecting that this was going to be a rigged and corrupt game in some measure of it. I was wrong as to the outright scale of how true that actually is. I mean, the media, the extent to which it's not just like the big lies that make the history books, as I think they should make the history books. COVID origin, Hunter Biden laptop story, Trump-Russia collusion. So we can go through the big ones. It's just in the daily, on a daily basis. Like at this point, when they're asking me what sounds like an earnest question, what you know is they're not even playing for the article. What headline can they extract out of that to maximally advance their narrative in a way that's completely disconnected to what you actually had to say? I mean, that's what the whole game is about. And so I've grown very cynical about it, but I think my way through the cynicism is also having fun with it.
Right.
Because I think that after you see it, it's actually a pretty fun game to play, right? You know exactly. You can, as long as you're able to keep the clock speed high, you're already able to see. Like, there's this guy, Alex, I forget his last name, at NBC, who like trails us around all these places. He's the way I can tell this guy's really ambitious. He's like the king of the gotchas. He's part of our press gaggle. He was actually at that last event too, that we didn't do the press thing afterwards. And he'll probably come up to you today too. It's going to be some gotcha. It's like kind of superficial. He's kind of an amateur, so you can kind of see through his on every case. And I just literally call out what the headline is going to be from what I'm going to say, and here's what I'm actually saying. And then it's almost like even after I say it, that's exactly the deceiving headline they'll print. So one of the things we've been doing is, we got our guy Gavin here, he's actually filming us. But he actually is now filming all those press interactions, and we just have fun with it, where when they print something that was completely false relative to what I just told them, at least the beauty of having a video person taking the actual video of it is that you literally can call them on their BS. And I've actually felt some sense of responsibility to do it, because the media is supposed to hold politicians accountable. They don't. They're running interference for a subset of those politicians to advance their agenda. Not just Democrats, but anybody who's advancing the pro-statist uniparty agenda. Nikki Haley fits that description, absolutely. But who's holding the media accountable? The answer right now is nobody.
Right.
And so if somebody out there wanted to, running for politics, running for president, starting a podcast, it's not the only way to drive change and open people's eyes. I think there's an opportunity for somebody to, I would say probably right of center or conservative, but it doesn't have to be, but somebody with integrity, to say we're actually going to hold the media accountable in a systematic, incredible way. And I think that thing is missing in our ecosystem, but I'm trying to do as best of a job as I can.
Yeah. Even
though it's not my main job, I'm running for U.S. president. It's been a side job that I've assumed in this campaign, and I think it's been productive in the short time we've been in this.
Yeah. One of the things that I think I've noticed just in traveling so much and speaking to people is that there does seem to be this sort of a mental block where people understand, Russian Pravda, we understand propaganda as it pertains to other countries, but we don't understand that it's also operating in this country as well. We're not unique to this. There is state-run media, and they exist to advance state causes.
Which makes me wonder, with the way you phrase that, Candace, I wonder if the people in those countries, I wonder the way they see it.
They see it as
the U.S. has a propaganda machine. Like if you're like in Russia right now or whatever, the U.S. has a propaganda machine, but I'm getting the truth.
That is how it exists.
And I suppose if they view it that way, that might be eye-opening for us to be wondering whether we're actually falling into that same trap and trick.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. But the good news is, I think that because there's just been so many exposed narratives over these last 4 years even, that people are now waking up to the fact that the media just simply can't be trusted, and they're asking deeper questions.
That's right.
How long have we not been able to trust the media? How long have I been asleep?
I think it's a very long time.
Very long time.
Yeah. It goes back to, just go back to the Iraq War, go back to the truth of what the media has said or not about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11. And that's just getting to the points where you and I have been in our adult life. How much further back you go, I think probably the same story's been true for as long as this political media has existed, or William Randolph Hearst or whatever that was back in the early part of the last century. And so, in the same way that we think we're so different from people in Russia who are being duped by their state media, well, I think that we're being duped by our quasi-state media here. Same thing, we think that it's unique to right now. It actually probably isn't. It's probably been around the same way for a century too. And if anything, we have a free and open internet, at least, which probably is something that checks that media more than existed.
Which is why they wanted it gone, and why Elon Musk is a hero, because they were almost successful.
They were almost successful, and they're still trying. They're trying to bankrupt X. That's part of why you see the vitriol and the backlash as it goes to the heart of. Now you're talking about their actual very business model itself at stake. But good news. Good news about when the wealthiest person in the world takes that up as their cause. I've lived the American dream. I'm wealthy, but there's a lot of wealthy people, but not 50, 70, 100, $200 billion wealthy. And that's what it takes And if it was a bunch of people, it wouldn't have happened. But if it was one person who can actually make a decisive difference personally with their own conviction, because when you get a group of people, then you start to dilute the effort and you actually recreate the beast. But it was sort of the random chance encounter of history that Elon was able to do that. And I think the free and open internet is probably the last best check that we have on the media. So anyway, I think that's up to people who use it now to make sure that we don't just complain about the media, but we see through it transparently and we no longer behave like a bunch of sheep.
And I'll ask you one final question for fun. If you could have dinner with one dead historical figure, who would it be and why?
Thomas Jefferson.
Wow, you answered that quickly.
No, I mean, I think I've thought about that one.
Wow.
And he was younger when he wrote the Declaration of Independence than I am right now running for U.S. president. He was younger than both of us when he wrote the freaking Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
And he was an inventor, and he was an explorer, and he's a funny guy. I think he almost went, personally bankrupted himself by paying for the wine collection that, he stored in the White House. And he was an intellectual. He was a guy who could, like you, I mean, we were talking about this, about one of the documentaries you're working on with somebody who you vehemently disagree with in politics, but you're able to engage in dialogue with him. Thomas Jefferson was a guy who could explore ideas, actually. Even if that's not necessarily, what his own views were as president, he could still try it on like a set of clothes and then explain the other view and then sort of take it off. And I think that that's something, I wouldn't say almost ever since then, because that was a long time ago, but with scarce few exceptions since, almost ever since, I think that's been missing in American politics. So if I'm running for president, I want to pick the guy who, for me, is what I think of as a model president for the way I want to run this country. Not in terms of policy, but in terms of personality and in terms of ethos and character. And so, yeah, I'd take a dinner with him, and one of his, especially if he could bring one of those old bottled wines that he stored up at the White House, would probably be a fun dinner we could have together. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Candace Owens interviewing Vivek Ramaswamy on the bus.